All right, so we're diving deep today, ready to unpack some really fascinating material you sent our way.
Absolutely. We're going to break it down, get to the heart of it all, make sure it's crystal clear and actually useful.
Exactly. No one wants to get lost in the weeds, right? The goal is understanding and hopefully having some fun along the way.
Couldn't agree more. It's about that aha moment, that spark of insight, and we're here to help make that happen.
Today we're tackling a lecture by Neville Goddard called The Secret of Praying from 1967.
Oh, interesting. So we're talking about prayer, but I have a feeling this isn't your typical Sunday school lesson.
You got that right. Goddard flips the script on what prayer really is. He presents it as this powerful technique for creating a life you truly desire, almost like an art form.
I'm intrigued already. So how does he even approach this? What's his starting point?
Well, he begins by pointing to the disciples, asking Jesus, teach us to pray. And instead of giving them a specific prayer, what does Jesus do? He tells a parable.
So it's not about memorizing the right words. It's got to be something deeper, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and Goddard sees this as a huge clue. It's about the method behind prayer, the underlying principles, not just reciting a bunch of lines.
So the how is more important than the what. I like that. So where do we start with this how?
Well, Goddard spends quite a bit of time on the parable of the persistent widow and the unjust judge.
Oh, yeah, the one who keeps nagging the judge until he finally gives in. I always thought it was about being annoying enough to get what you want.
Yeah, that's the surface level, but Goddard goes way beyond that.
I figured. So what's his take on it then?
He's saying it's not about badgering some external deity. It's about the power of your own inner focus, that relentless commitment to holding on to your desired outcome in your mind.
So it's about not giving up on your inner work, that unwavering belief, even when things look tough.
Exactly. It's about that inner fire that keeps you going, that unwavering faith in what you're creating mentally.
He even takes it a step further, talking about this idea of mastery, right?
Oh, yeah. He suggests that when you truly master this inner work, the most powerful prayer becomes just a simple, thank you, Father.
Wow. So it's about reaching a state where you're so aligned with your desire that it's already a given. You're just expressing gratitude for it.
Precisely. It's that deep inner knowing, that unshakable faith that what you're seeking is already yours.
But he doesn't pretend it's easy, right? He emphasizes that until you get to that level of mastery, you need a technique, a method to practice consistently.
Absolutely. He compares it to any art form. You don't become a virtuoso overnight. It takes dedicated effort and a proven approach.
Makes sense. So what's the first step in this art of praying?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Goddard talks about this concept of Jerusalem. He points out how the prophets in the Bible would always orient themselves towards Jerusalem when praying.
Facing a specific direction, is that just a ritualistic thing?
It might seem that way, but Goddard digs much deeper. He even traces the word back to its origins, appearing first as Shalem in Genesis.
Oh, yeah. When Jacob arrives safely and builds that altar called Elohi Israel, God, the God of Israel, right?
Exactly. So even in its first appearance, it's connected to this idea of safety and a direct connection with the divine.
Interesting. But what about the actual meaning of Jerusalem?
Well, according to Goddard, it literally means to direct the true direction. It's about intentionally directing yourself, symbolized by yod, the hand, towards a state of being secure, whether in your mind, body, or circumstances.
So there's this active element of directing your energy towards something.
Exactly. And we see this played out literally, like Daniel praying towards Jerusalem and even Muslims facing Mecca when they pray.
So it's about physically orienting yourself in a specific direction.
Well, that's the outer manifestation, but here's the twist. Goddard says the true Jerusalem isn't a place on a map, it's within you.
Whoa, okay, mind blown. So it's not about going on a physical pilgrimage. It's about an internal alignment, a mental shift.
Exactly. It's not about turning your body eastward. It's about turning your inner being towards a feeling, a conviction.
Okay, I'm getting this. So how do we actually do that? How do we orient ourselves towards this inner Jerusalem?
That's where his core technique comes in. And it's all about moving from thinking of something you desire to thinking from the state of the wish fulfilled.
Ah, that's a powerful distinction. I'm sensing this is a major key here.
It's the heart of Goddard's method. Let me give you an example. He uses the idea of wanting to be in New York City.
All right, so I'm thinking of being in New York, picturing myself there. Sounds good so far.
But see, that's still keeping it separate from you. It's something you're yearning for, a desire out there.
I see. So what's the thinking from part then?
It's about assuming you're already there right now in your imagination. You're in New York City. feeling it, experiencing it.
Okay, so I'm embodying the feeling of being there as if it's already happened.
Exactly. And then you look at your current circumstances, your friends, your location, the time, all relative to this new reality of being in New York.
Wow, so it's like a mental reorientation. If I was actually in New York, how would I see my current situation?
Precisely. Where would your loved ones be in relation to you? What would be different about your day-to-day life?
I'm starting to feel the power of this shift.
And it's this act of inhabiting the fulfilled desire, mentally and emotionally, that creates the motion in prayer.
Right, because Goddard even looked up the biblical definitions of prayer, and it's all about motion towards, accession to, being in the vicinity of, things like that.
And he emphasizes that this motion isn't physical, it's the inner movement of your consciousness, that feeling of being aligned with your desired outcome.
So it's not about traveling to a physical Jerusalem. It's about creating that feeling of Jerusalem within you, that sense of being home, being safe, being aligned with your desire.
Absolutely. And what fuels this inner motion, according to Goddard, is the power of imagination.
Ah, that makes sense. So we're talking about harnessing the power of our minds to create our reality.
Exactly. And he quotes William Blake, who said, "Man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us, and we in him. The eternal body of man, that immortal body of man, is the imagination, and that is God himself."
Wow, that's pretty deep. It's saying that our imagination is essentially divine.
That's the core of it. Our imagination is a creative force within us, the power to shape our reality.
So this thinking from, the wish fulfilled, this inner movement, it's all fueled by our imagination, and it's not just limited to physical things like being in a certain location, right?
Not at all. It applies to any desire, whether it's for personal fulfillment, a better job, improved relationships, even for the well-being of others.
Okay, so I can use this technique to help others achieve their desires too.
Absolutely. And to illustrate this power, Goddard shares a story about a friend of his who was going through a lot of inner turmoil.
Oh, I'm always fascinated by those personal stories. They make it so much more real.
So this friend was experiencing all this inner conflict, and it was manifesting in his mind's eye as a scene of intense struggle, like a war zone almost.
And what did he do?
Well, he consciously shifted his imagination. He replaced that scene of conflict with one of complete peace and harmony.
And that changed things for him.
Absolutely. It shows how powerful these inner shifts can be, that by changing your inner world, you can affect your outer reality.
So prayer, in this sense, becomes the art of mastering those inner shifts, moving from a state of lack to a state of fulfillment, all through the power of imagination.
Precisely. And Goddard makes a clear connection between these internal changes and the transformations we see in our external world.
Right, because he says any change is a form of motion. And since he believes the external world is a reflection of our inner selves, those internal changes have to show up externally.
That's the principle, yourself pushed out, as he puts it. So if you change your inner world, your outer world will inevitably follow suit.
This reminds me of a great piece of advice he gave to his friend Benny. Don't desire, live it.
Oh yeah, that's classic Goddard. It really captures the essence of moving from thinking of to thinking from.
It's like instead of yearning for something, you step into the reality of it being true right now.
Exactly. Thinking of keeps it at arm's length, but thinking from is about embodying it, living as if the wish is already fulfilled.
And he's a big advocate for persistence in this assumed state, even if it feels strange or forced at first.
Absolutely. He says that by consistently dwelling in that feeling, even if your senses and logic are screaming otherwise, it will eventually harden into fact.
It's like you're convincing your own mind, your own subconscious, that this is the new reality.
And he even goes back to that parable of the friend asking for bread at midnight, focusing on the word importunity.
Yeah, that always stood out to me. It's not just about asking repeatedly. It's got to be something more intense than that.
Right. He interprets it as a kind of brazen impudence, this unwavering inner knowing that you will receive what you're seeking, no matter what the external circumstances look like.
So it's about demanding it from the universe, not in a forceful way, but with absolute certainty.
Exactly. It's that unshakable faith that melts away all doubt and resistance.
Okay, this is all starting to click. So what are some practical ways to cultivate this inner knowing, this thinking from state?
Well, Goddard talks about an exercise he used to do with his friend Abdullah. They would take turns shifting their awareness between two locations in their home.
Like imagining being seated at the telephone, then shifting to being in a chair across the room?
Exactly. The key was to fully immerse themselves in the sensory experience of each location, to the point where the other location completely faded from awareness.
So it's about practicing that mental shifting, getting comfortable with inhabiting different states of being.
Precisely. And Goddard says that with enough practice, this kind of focused imaginative movement can become incredibly vivid.
To the point where you feel like you're actually there.
It can get that real. He even suggests that people might actually perceive you in that imagined location, even though you're physically somewhere else.
Whoa, that's wild. So my imagination can actually affect the physical world around me.
That's what he's suggesting, and it ties into his concept of the bridge of incidents.
What's that exactly?
It refers to the mysterious ways in which the physical world rearranges itself to match the state you've established in your imagination.
So I mentally inhabit the reality I want, and then the universe conspires to make it happen in the physical realm.
That's the idea. It's a bit like planting a seed and trusting that it will grow, even though you can't see the process happening underground.
So the art of praying, according to Goddard, is about mastering this inner world, this ability to dwell in the imagined reality of your wish fulfilled, even when your senses and logic are telling you otherwise.
And he makes a clear distinction between this kind of deep inner work and the superficial rituals that often pass for prayer.
Right, he talks about people going through the motions in church, but not really engaging their hearts and minds.
He even recounts a vision his wife had where she saw two women reading from religious texts about faith and forgiveness, one representing Judaism, the other Christianity.
And what was the point of that vision?
Well, Goddard saw it as highlighting the psychological nature of faith and how challenging it can be to truly embody those spiritual principles in our daily lives.
Yeah, it's easy to talk the talk, but walking the walk is a whole other story.
And this all connects back to the idea of oneness, the concept of our Father. If we're all connected to the same source, then what we see in the external world is just a reflection of our own inner state.
So if I want to change my world, I need to change myself first.
That's the core principle. And it's through mastering this art of prayer, this conscious direction of our imagination, that we can align ourselves with our deepest desires and create the reality we want.
It's about taking responsibility for our own experience.
And to further solidify this idea, Goddard even shares accounts of people confirming his imaginative travels.
What do you mean by that?
He would imagine being in certain locations, and then people would write to him, describing seeing him there at specific times, sometimes even accounting for time zone differences.
Wow, so they were picking up on his mental projections, his imagined reality.
It seems that way, and it reinforces his belief that you are exactly what you're imagining, because that is God. It's like our imagination is the divine spark within us, shaping our reality.
And since our true being is imagination, which he equates with God, he concludes that we're essentially immortal beings.
That's the ultimate implication. We're not limited by our physical bodies. Our true essence is eternal and ever-creating.
That's a powerful thought to consider. But what about the practical side of things? We still have to operate in the physical world, pay bills, deal with everyday challenges.
Of course, and Goddard acknowledges that. He calls it paying the price of Caesar.
Right, so how does prayer fit into that?
He uses the example of President Kennedy and his father. Instead of fighting against external limitations like taxes, we can use this art of prayer to create more abundance and flow in our lives.
So it's not about escaping the world, it's about mastering it from within.
Exactly. He even suggests that we should spend $1 as if we owned boundless forests.
I love that. It's about embodying that feeling of abundance, even in the smallest actions.
And that connects to the understanding that through this form of prayer, we can constantly replenish what we give, whether it's money, energy, or love.
Okay, so just to recap, what's the core instruction here?
Stop simply desiring something and start living as if it's already yours. Capture the feeling of the wish fulfilled and think from that state.
It's about making that internal shift from thinking of to thinking from, right?
Precisely. Thinking from a state gives it a sense of reality, and mastering this ability to move into and think from any state we desire is the ultimate key to freedom.
It's like we're training our minds to become the reality we want to see.
And the culmination of this process, the hallmark of mastery, is a state of pure gratitude.
That's where that simple "thank you, Father" comes in.
Exactly. And he encourages us to practice this technique consistently, not just for ourselves, but for others as well.
So it's about extending that creative power outwards, using it to bless the world around us.
And with dedicated practice, prayer evolves into this natural state of thanksgiving, this intimate I-thou relationship with the divine essence within us.
Wait, so we're addressing the divine as separate, but it's also our own deepest self.
That's the paradox, and it's this understanding that allows us to reach a state of automatic gratitude for our desires, as if they're already fulfilled, trusting implicitly in their eventual manifestation.
It's like surrendering to the creative power of the universe, knowing that it's always working for our good.
Now, in the actual lecture, Goddard takes questions from the audience, and one of them asked about the significance of orienting towards Jerusalem, if it's really within us.
Yeah, that's a good question. How did he address that?
He explained that internally orienting towards Jerusalem is about directing your attention and conviction towards the inner certainty that your desire is already fulfilled, regardless of what the external world is showing you.
So it's about ignoring those false gods, those limiting beliefs and negative circumstances that try to hold us back.
Exactly. And he refers to Daniel turning his back on the lions, symbolizing that turning away from negativity and embracing the God of Israel, the I am consciousness within us.
That's powerful imagery. So Jerusalem, Zion, Salem, the city of David, they're all symbolic of our inner self, the place where our fulfilled desires reside.
Another listener asked a very practical question. How do you imagine being in a place like New York City if you've never actually been there?
That's a common challenge. How did Goddard suggest overcoming that?
He acknowledged that direct experience is helpful, but most of us have some mental image of even unfamiliar places through media, like movies and photographs.
So you can draw upon those impressions to build a mental picture.
Exactly. And he even offered a specific exercise, if you're in California, for example, trying to imagine being in New York, focus on the relative geographical positions and the time difference.
Right, so New York is east of California and has a later morning time that can help create a more tangible sense of actually being in that different location.
So after this deep dive into Neville Goddard's lecture, it's clear that prayer, as he presents it, is this potent technique for using our imagination to step into the reality of our desires.
It's about making that crucial shift from simply wanting something to living as if it's already ours.
And the key is consistent practice. It's not a one-time thing. It's about cultivating this inner state as a way of life.
So, as we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a question to ponder. If your imagination truly holds the creative power of your reality, how might you engage with your inner world differently from this point forward?
What specific inner motions will you begin to practice and cultivate? That's a powerful question to take with you on your journey.
The answers might just surprise you.
And that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? There's always more to discover.
Absolutely. It's a journey of continuous exploration and creation.
Well said. Until next time.
Keep diving deep.